Literacy Out Loud was an evolution with Terry Campbell and I. We started using talk in the classroom as a form of storytelling as part of the pre-writing process. And then it evolved and we realized we did it over a few years and we found that talk deepens learning very much so. Talk can no longer be a sidelined and we found it is the springboard to all learning over time. So we just started with the storytelling aspect and then realized it could be used for all areas of learning and it really deepened the student learning. Basically the talk was replacing the mind webs and the kids, their stories weren't as deep. Then we experimented with how about if they tell the story. We started with storytelling without writing anything. They just would tell an anecdote. Then gradually we came to writing a story. Their thinking was much deeper and it was more detailed and they were able to get advice from their peers. And that's how we just started, just with anecdotes, because I found that their writing, they were really struggling with their writing. It wasn't very deep. You'd get 3 lines and you knew that, there's more ideas in there other than 3 lines or barely a paragraph. And then once we started with the talk and storytelling, their work has deepened and their work was so elaborate, for their ages. It was fantastic. So then we decided to evolve into putting talk into all aspects of literacy. You can start off with self-portrait storytelling. It's in one of the chapters and it talks about how kids talk about they do a little biography of themselves, and they're taking a picture frame and they talk about who they are and aspects about themselves. And I've even used it cross-curricularly where you could take a famous person, you can dress up as that famous person, put yourself in the picture frame and talk about, all the things that you've done. So it could be cross subjects, like for social studies or, like the Historica projects that the kids are able to do. So you're able to use those strategies. There was the storytelling and community circle is a big cultural norm in my class now. That's how the talk starts, is starting with that community circle in the morning and building community with the students to enable all these activities. That's the foundation. When human beings speak, they're saying that they are. Through speaking, we express the fact that we're thinking, feeling, and that we can communicate that to thinking, feeling beings. When we listen to one another, we become aware of the thoughts and feelings of other people, right? So then it becomes into that, it builds that community, and essentially Literacy Out Loud can give a voice to the voiceless, in your classroom. So it's a very powerful book and there's lots of powerful strategies in it. And it'll encourage teachers to maybe reconsider how they run their classroom in the morning. Instead of doing bell work, have a class meeting and talk about that. There's a lot of chatter going on, but it's very much useful, and they get to know each other as people, and they make new friends, they learn commonalities, and they just build that community, and all the strategies then they come into play. Set your classroom culture as a community. You're equal in that, there's equity in that. You're equal with your students, you're not above them, then that's a very big thing, that you have to be on their level. You're just a person like them and you're in that circle with them. You're there to moderate and advise and to coach them, the strategies and listening. Obviously in September they don't listen, like they come in like every other class, but it takes patience and time and stick to it. You could have a difficult class, and it's one of the best things. I've had difficult classes through what you would consider difficult, and these strategies have made everyone see how wonderful the kids can really be and that they are. But that's the biggest advice, is set your classroom culture as a community and start that community circle. Take one thing, like you don't have to do everything, and take one thing and get really good at it. Build on that and embed that. Then once you embed that into your culture, try something else, keep adding to your classroom culture. And I think that is the best advice I can give to teachers who are just starting out. And have courage. I find that younger teachers are brave to try that. So even some of the strategies that we have in our book, the Henry Finch strategy, one teacher who went into her placement did it with JKSK students. And it seems like an activity that you would do with grade 4 or 5, like 4 to 6, and she tried it with JKSK, and the work that she came with, that she forwarded to us, was quite amazing. That she said she tried it with, and she had little direction at all. She just took it and went with it. And that's the thing, is not to be afraid to go with something, try something. So the story of the Henry Finch is about a little bird who flies away from his flock, like his other birds are squawking for no reason, chirping, and so he decided to be the thinker in the community, and he set himself apart. And that's the activity. They got them to draw the little birds and their little speech bubbles, what they would be thinking. And what they came up with was quite amazing, for little people. They drew their little birds with their fingerprint, and then then they went with it, and they were saying who they were, like, I am kind, I am, for JKSK, like, what's your thought? To leave it open and to be open-minded. I would like to talk about a little bit about how Literacy Out Loud gives equity into the learning experience, and allows for differentiation. I've been asked, like, some kids with special needs, they're still able to be part of a community. It's a thing of belonging, like, even some kids might not say anything, and you don't have to force them to say anything in that circle, because they're listening and they belong. They feel like they belong in that community. So I think that's the biggest thing, is allowing that community and that culture to happen.